USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project has changed the trajectory of child justice in the OECS. The OECS Commission continues to advance its social development agenda through the revised Treaty of Bastille and the Strategic Inclusion and Strategic Protection Framework that addresses the promotion and support of equity and social inclusion within the OECS member states. The OECS Social Inclusion and Social Protection Strategic Framework supports the reintegration of child offenders and has aligned the USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project to support this priority. In 2012, the OECS Commission and USAID collaboratively launched the Juvenile Justice Reform Project in 6 OECS independent member states, namely Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Over the 9 years of the JJRP, significant achievements have been made across the participating member states, shifting from a punitive system to one that is rehabilitative when dealing with children in conflict with the law. New child justice and childcare protection and adoption legislation, guided by the international agreements such as the Convention of the Rights of a Child and the Riyadh Guidelines, has been enacted in 5 of the 6 participating member states. While Dominica has not enacted the Child Justice Bill, notable consultations and actions have been conducted to that end. One substantial change within the new child justice legislation is the age that a child can be held criminally responsible for committing an offense. Now, the legislation is consistent across member states, whereby children between 12 and 17 years of age cannot be tried as an adult, and more importantly, are now being diverted from the formal court process and instead receive psychological and other interventions geared toward their rehabilitation. To date, over 442 children have been diverted or have been given alternative sentencing and therefore have no criminal record. Diversion is the first pillar of the Juvenile Justice Reform Project and provides an opportunity to divert children from prosecution or the court and allow justice officials to work with the children, families, community members, and other stakeholders to holistically address issues. The diversion of over 442 children towards a rehabilitation program leading to reintegration into their communities has been a game changer, as the child justice system is now more rehabilitative.
Diversion have been taking place for years informally, but is now being done in a more formal way through the implementation of the Child Justice Act of 2013, which outlines the process and allows for the St. Kitts and Nevis Child Justice Committee to be the standing authority to divert and monitor juveniles who have come into conflict with the law. We started diversion through the CJC in late 2019, and thus far we have had 9 juveniles diverted through the committee based on diversion agreements. We have seen less juveniles going through the court process for simple offenses. Matters are dealt with in a more timely manner, more supervision is done, and more follow-ups as it relates to providing services to the children and families, and have resulted in a reduction in recidivism. Presently, we are in the process of putting together our diversion registration and monitoring committee. This committee will be tasked with ensuring that all registered programs or organizations are up to the standard and meeting the objective of the juveniles diverted to their programs.
Across the participating OECS member states, stakeholders have made significant strides in operationalizing the legislation to ensure that policies, systems, and operating procedures reflect and support the new child justice laws. Some of these measures include the development of diversion strategies, the development of a toolkit, and subsequent training to use the toolkit to holistically implement the 3 pillars of juvenile justice reform: diversion, rehabilitation, and reintegration. Guidelines have also been developed to aid member states as they seek to establish juvenile justice reform management units.
In Antigua and Barbuda, the Child Justice Act 2015 came into effect on 1st October 2016, and a Child Justice Board, or centralized system for the hearing of juvenile matters, commenced in March 2018. Other systemic and structural changes included All juvenile matters are now processed through the family court. A designated prosecutor for juvenile cases was appointed. A probation officer from the Family and Social Services Division was assigned to work with the Child Justice Board and the Juvenile Court, and children in conflict with the law who do not have the resources to retain an attorney at law are now offered legal aid or pro bono services from private legal practitioners. The support from the USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project in the establishment of these systems and structures has been tremendous. The new ethos that now applies to how children in conflict with the law are handled has firmly taken root within the social and legal structures of Antigua and Barbuda.
Capacity building to ensure that the requisite knowledge and skills for the full implementation of the new legislation and the establishment of a rehabilitative environment for children in conflicts with the law was a priority for the JJRP. More than 1,400 service providers have been trained to improve the diversion, rehabilitation and reintegration services provided to children in conflicts with the law and their families. Training in a variety of areas including assessment training, training in Therascribe, trauma training, 26 aggression replacement training sessions have been conducted with children in conflicts with the law, with 23 ART master trainers and facilitators trained and 215 children having completed ART.
I took the ART program because I got into a serious fight at school, which led me to get 2 years of probation, and one of the conditions were that I had to take that program. The changes that I've made from the skills learned since the ART program, I am better at decision making, controlling my anger and environment. The ART program changed my life for the best. I'm mainly in a calm state of mind. I'm more driven towards my educational goals. I'm channeling my energy and free time into more positive activities.
Rehabilitation is the second pillar of the JJRP. JJRP's focus on this pillar included support for both the physical structures and the programming mechanisms that facilitated effective and impactful juvenile justice reform across the participating member states. Grand Bacolet Juvenile Rehabilitation and Treatment Center in Grenada, New Horizons, and Yes to Success in St. Kitts and Nevis were new facilities established during JJRP's lifetime with funding provided by USAID to support these physical structures. Liberty Lodge Boys Training Center in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia Boys Training Center, Boys Training School in Antigua and Barbuda, the Operation Youthquake in Dominica have received funding from JJRP to enhance their facilities, and all 6 are in receipt of equipment donations to support vocational skills training programs.
The USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project, or JJRP, has been a huge player in juvenile justice reformation in Grenada. Grand Bacolet Rehabilitation and Treatment Center has benefited tremendously from the JJRP with funding for infrastructural changes and organizational design that made our center more child-friendly to the provision of furniture, tools, and manuals for the vocational training, civil works for the center. We have also received funding for a new education center and music training program. Throughout the lifetime of the JJRP, Bacolet has benefited significantly in the area of capacity building, and not just for our staff, but all Grenadian stakeholders who interact with children in conflict with the law. At Bacolet, we have supported more than 200 young people in residence and others within the community with a variety of rehabilitative programs, both psychosocial and therapeutic and skills-based. In the last 3 years, we have had young persons who have been successful with a range of 3 to 5 CXC subjects based on our education program. We have had few persons leave the facility, start their own businesses, and others have become employable and have sustained employment because of the interventions experienced at Bacolet.
The third pillar of JJRP is reintegration. JJRP's efforts have focused on assisting member states to develop mechanisms and procedures to aid children in conflict with the law as they reintegrate into society following their rehabilitation.
In Grenada, we have established a juvenile justice unit to ensure that every child living in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique will be supported to lead a crime-free life and make a positive contribution to society. I am the Community Reintegration Officer in the Juvenile Justice Unit, with responsibility for assisting clients in their rejoining of society and assisting them with the tools of becoming productive citizens. I have assisted children in conflict with the law in ways that include, but are not limited to, practicing motivational interviewing with clients, establishing a rapport with the children in conflict with the law. I build a connection with the children to better understand their situation, working in the best interest of the child, and using their skills and dreams to craft a unique reintegration approach that encourages growth, development, and productivity. Children in conflict with the law in Grenada have also been assisted in reintegration by enrolling in vocational and soft skills programs.
It takes a village to support the children of the region to ensure we continue to produce well-rounded and productive citizens to contribute to and lead future societies.
Whilst I was at Boys Training Center, I got involved in the ARP project, Regression Replacement Training. I got involved in sports, boxing, football, traveled around the world, so this helped build my mind and open me up to different personalities and perceptions to life. Working with others and getting and mingling with different mindsets helps me open up my mind to life in a different way and see it as an opportunity to get something greater as I'm reintegrating in my village of Ansler.
The JJRP and the many juvenile justice stakeholders have worked tirelessly to reform juvenile justice in the OECS participating member states to ensure that all children in conflict with the law get a chance for change. This message is brought to you by the USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project, funded by the United States Agency for International Development. For more information, log on to oecs.org/JJRP.